Hello, Lego lovers. This is Elle, and unfortunately, we have a situation here. And as you can see, there seems to be something going on down here. And I stopped them because this was getting out of hand. We had minifigure Elsa here saying that mini dolls are horrible and should never be in any sets. And then the mini doll Elsa was saying that this Elsa was terrible, and they started firing cold blasts at each other. Now, admittedly, thankfully, Elsa, both of them, the cold never bothered them anyway, so they're not hurt at all. Anna tried to stop them by saying we can just be friends. Jasmine just started screaming, "Oh my gosh, another Jasmine." And Olaf just said, "I like warm hugs, so why don't we just all hug?" And yeah, so I decided because this was going on that I should do that video that I've talked about for a long time. And that is mini dolls versus minifigures, at least a part one. Get into this controversial topic that really shouldn't be controversial. But just to kind of give my opinions on it, I guess, and kind of talk through what I feel, I guess, because everything's just kind of an opinion. But yeah, let's get into whatever this video is going to be. So as you can see, what I did here is I have two lines of figures. One is minifigures, one is mini dolls, except for the two in back, they do what they want. And if you've seen any of my city videos or even any of my mock videos, you'll know that I overly don't necessarily care that they are minifigures or mini dolls. I do a lot more mini doll stuff because I think they're underrepresented, and I do actually like them better. And that's my opinion, I guess. So let's get into what the actual figures look like. So first up, let's look at our famous Elsa here. And Elsa has a different mini doll head because I decided to give her one that has a little bit of angry emotion, because honestly, recently, with how people treat mini dolls, I feel a little bit like that. One of the features of mini dolls is that they are different. They are different than minifigures. I'm going to take the cape off here so we can kind of look at it more. So the skirt part here is one thing that really stands out, at least to me. So if we compare the skirts on minifigures, which they only recently came out with effectively, you'll notice something. They're very different. And these are short, these are long. Now, if you've worn a skirt or a dress in real life, which one is more realistic? Well, that's quite obvious, it's this one. Now, print-wise, this print looks fairly simple. This is fairly detailed. I will say one thing, prints are up to Lego. So comparing prints is pretty much a useless thing, because Lego could make a way better print on here. They could make a way better print on here. However, that has cost. There's limitations on both. And they both don't even have prints on the back. Now, overall, we can say that the minifigure part is more versatile because you can put bricks and studs on there, but we don't see that too often. I've seen this part used for other things, but I've also seen this part used for things. So they both have weird uses, and this is just the skirt part. Now, the torsos is where it becomes a little bit more interesting. So the hands for a mini doll do not rotate, and that's one of the big controversial things. Whereas the minifigure does rotate, as so, and does actually kind of have a nice angle that will allow you to pose different things in there better. Now, they were looking at trying to do that with mini dolls. If you've ever seen any of the prototype figures, they did try to do that because they wanted to make them more human proportioned. They could have done that, but then all of them would have had billowy sleeves, and that would be awkward. So they decided not to. And in all honesty, I don't feel it matters too much in play at all, because as a kid, I was a kid once, believe it or not, if you're gonna like sword fight them, you're just gonna put the thing in their hand and they're gonna be like, you're not gonna be like, now you might have it at a different pose at a different time, but most of the time, as per even in the Lego movie, a fight is like gonna be like this at a really young age. And once you get old enough where you don't fight with them, you're posing them. So in theory, person holding sword, person holding sword. Now, it does allow for some versatility to get some different, angles and stuff in there. And that's pretty neat, right? The thing with the difference is that there's a reason why they didn't do it, because it wouldn't work. Now, one day, maybe with 3D printing, or if they decide to put the money in it, they will be able to make these rotate and not just instantly break. None of these are perfect. As you can see, the main thing that the mini doll has is realism. It looks a lot more real. The proportions are a lot more realistic. I've heard people say that, oh my gosh, they look so terrible next to minifigures. And I ask you, when you look at these characters, do they really look so different? Their outfits are nearly identical. Different prints, obviously. Arms, dress, I mean, they're almost the same height. They're not really that different. I mean, it's not like they're micro dolls or something. It's not like they have a weird different look of proportions than what is somewhat normal for Lego. This is a Lego figure. It is very Lego. It has the open hands. It has the quality of Lego, unlike some other really bad brands. The facial printing is good. They didn't skimp on it to make it just really bad like some of the original minifigures. Now, there's a couple other things that are a little different. The heads, both have that stud on top. From the side, they look very similar, but one looks more proportioned correctly. Now, the advantage of the non-proportioned correctly one is that it's a little bit easier to get prints on both sides, which doesn't work with short hair because you have faces on the other sides. Now, I wonder if they could do this with this and make it a little different. However, it would lose its chin, but in theory, minifigures don't really kind of have a chin if you think about it. They don't have an imprint that sticks out. There's even a little dot on that for a nose. So in realism, the mini doll looks a lot better. And I don't know why they call it a mini doll over a minifigure, because in all honesty, this is more of a mini doll than this, because if you've looked at a doll, you'll notice that they don't usually have very much realist portions compared to an action figure, which actually has more realistic proportions. Now, action-wise, this has a little bit more. Actually, this has less, because you can actually sit down, whereas no, you can't sit down. And for people who are like, oh, there's, that difference, well, the thing is that if you want to say these are made for girls and these weren't, well, they're both kind of made for girls. And one of them works better and looks better in that aspect. And I think that's the biggest difference for them. And then even when looking at other figures, now these are very, very similar. Even the printing is even more similar on these, and as I drop them. But again, this looks more realistic than that. This might be deemed more iconic Lego. We've had these for almost 10 years now. And if you ask me, if I see something like this, it's Lego. I can tell when I have a brand of whatever else, and it's not Lego. Because, for one, Lego has the face quality, which is actually really good. They have the durability of the figure. These hands do kind of stay, and obviously there's different looseness to it. Sometimes if you look at a different brand, if they have a skirt, which they usually don't, you wouldn't be able to have it sitting or stick in anything at all. So it's kind of awkward when people are complaining about these because they're both really cool, and that's one thing. Now, let's get to ones that have legs over skirts. So here we have, obviously, most of these on the minifigure side are from the Disney CMF series, which wasn't a huge fan of, really, because I had better figures, I guess. So here we have Jasmine's, and as you can see, one has way better printing, looks way more realistic than the other one. And here you can see our indent for the female figure, which you don't need on here. They have slightly different figures for that. And the outfit is way more detailed on here. You really get the sense of the type of pants she's wearing, which is iconic to the movie, where over here you have nothing, really. And another additional thing is the different color here. It just looks awkward and a little weird. And then you look on the side and it's even worse because she's supposed to have flesh there. Whereas something like this, and in more recent times, this is actually an older figure, they've actually continued the print all the way around so it looks more realistic. Whereas Lego, I do not believe, has done minifigure side printing at all yet. And then again with the arms, there's a little more detail in here, but they could have put it on there. It's just what they decide. The hair pieces are identical and work with each other. Now, this figure can sit on plates. This figure can sit with the special mini doll type thing, or you can just try and have them sit. And then the interesting thing with these is that they both don't have any alternate face, so that's not really relevant. But this doesn't look colored right, whereas this looks way better. So anyone who's complaining about that is a little awkward. Now, could they have done a better Jasmine print? Yes, they could have, but they didn't. And you don't get that detail compared to these figures. I mean, they even have a differentiation between shoes. The color goes all the way around, whereas on minifigures, it actually doesn't. Now, one thing that really stands out a minifigure above mini dolls is going to be their posability, especially in reference for stop motion. Because here you can see, if I can get it to stay on, you can have, like, an awkward walking pose. You can do different things. And the advantage of Lego is that you have that connection that's tight, so they're not just falling down. You can actually pose them. Whereas mini dolls' disadvantage with their legs being connected is you can't. You can really only get kind of an arm swinging type motion to make it look like they're walking, which in reality is not necessarily the worst. You just can't get the individual legs to be moving, which in all honesty isn't necessarily a thing that's really relevant. I made up a word, because when you're posing stuff, they're going to be standing still. Now, you can pose them so they're not standing still, but you can still have them with action and a look to them. And then you have Olaf, which isn't even relevant, because is Olaf a mini doll? We could say he's a mini doll because he has mini doll hands, whereas the brick-built one has worse hands. So, yeah, I don't know how they would make that a minifigure at all, but when they've made it like this, it's fantastic, and I think the printing's pretty good. So overall, the thing I like to point out is that they can be together. They if you've seen my city videos, they can be together. It's not really a mind-bending thing. This doesn't make the universe explode. They can interact. They can do stuff. It's not mind-bending. I don't understand why people are like, oh my gosh, mini dolls are horrible. And for the people who are like, oh, I wish we could get mini doll sets without mini dolls. Well, I bet you there's a lot of mini doll people, me included, wish they could get sets with minifigures, but instead mini dolls. I would love a Star Wars line with mini doll figures because they would look more realistic and yet still retain that Lego look, which I don't understand when people say, oh, that's not Lego. It's totally Lego. This is what Lego's design is for these figures, and I think it's great. I think it shows a lot more, just everything. You have detail. Now, one of the things I will say is that Lego is behind on doing stuff with mini dolls. The print quality is getting better, but it is not up to par with some of these minifigures. I would say these prints are all fairly par on each other, but some of the most recent minifigures have really had good prints, and mini dolls have been getting better prints, but I would say are slightly behind. But they can do better, and I know they can, and they have slowly done it. Who remembers the first minifigures? I don't think the first minifigures had arms or legs or could move at all, and then they did that, and they're just constantly moving forward and doing cooler things. The minifigure is iconic, but these have been around for 10 years, and I think they're becoming iconic. Would you prefer what we got in Scala with the literal action figure Barbie doll type things? Or in Belleville? I mean, is that something you would rather see on shelves? Or would you rather see something that is comparative to a minifigure? Because I'm not a big fan of Belleville and stuff like that. So this is fantastic. They're close to the same scale, which is great. I don't have a problem putting them together. I kind of have this concept that there's a Lego multiverse, and, you know, just as other movies and stuff, they can come together and become one and work together and do things together. I will admit that they don't have good stop motion ability in mini dolls. I would love to see someone put in honest effort to make mini doll stop motions. I think that's something that could be pretty cool to actually try out and work with. The Lego Movie 2 kind of did it, even though that was really computer graphics. So the end all of mini dolls versus minifigures is there's no real need for a versus. I think they're both great. They're both iconic Lego. Lego can up their game with mini dolls if they want by making their prints better, by giving them more expressions, by, you know, just doing what they've been doing, is constantly and slowly kind of upgrading stuff. I would love to see more expressions and different stuff. Mini dolls lines have brought us so many cool things, and I can't wait to see the future. If you see this video and you're a big minifigure fan, all I ask of you is just don't hate on mini doll sets. Just they can live together. Appreciate the fact that the mini doll people can get mini doll sets, and, you know, minifigures get tons of minifigures all the time. I don't think we need to be hating on each other or complaining that, oh, a set came without minifigures or whatever. Personally, I'm more of a build type person. I like mini dolls just because they're different and interesting, but when it gets down to it, I display the build. I don't necessarily display the figures. Lego was the builds. It was always about the spaceships and the rocket ships and the vehicles and all that fun stuff. So hopefully you got something out of this video. Really want to hear your comments and opinions in the comments. Just keep it nice and just be honest. Just don't get hateful and angry and stuff. But I'm going to wrap up this video. There might be a part 2, there might not be. But let me know what you think in the comments. Hopefully you enjoyed this weird ranty or not ranty video. And hopefully you'll check out more of my other videos. Thank you for watching.